Hello everyone and welcome back to Always Watching. Today we're discussing The Boys episode 5, and this is probably my favorite episode so far because the boys are contemplating whether or not any of this will be worth it at the end. Even if they manage to take out Homelander, they've compromised themselves so much, it almost doesn't matter. Like, he's kind of brought them down to his level. To begin, I will start with the expo before we go into the demon sheep. Expo was absolutely awesome. We were introduced to the Vought cinematic universe and also some new soups that we have never heard of. I really thought that the expo was a moment of truth because we follow these soups around and we know that Vought is a scam. We know that everything they do is to cover their own behind. However, their fans don't know that. And I think watching this episode, it dawned on me how powerful and how big of an impact Vought industry has in the lives of the average citizen. This is very true to life. Like, watching these soups, A-Train in particular, trying to promote, I think, training A-Train, like, he was so cringe, but he knows that this means the world to his fans. And it just got me thinking about how empty a lot of these franchises are and how a lot of companies kind of milk them for all that they're worth. Looking at the audience, everyone is dressed up as their favorite soup. They're so excited to be there. They had tears in their eyes for the in memoriam. And a lot of these companies, even in real life, have an impact not just financially but emotionally. They play on your hopes and your dreams to manipulate you out of your resources and get you invested in a reality that really wants nothing but the worst for you. So one of the highlights of this episode is the way the expo was paralleled with what was going on with the boys, as well as what was going on with Huey. For instance, we're introduced to a new soup called Tech Night, and it turns out that one of Huey's favorite soups was Tech Night. His father mentions at some point that he had to take Huey to the store to buy this doll. And prior to his girlfriend being killed, Huey was a fan. He was very invested in the Vought cinematic universe. He saved his money, he bought the dolls, he bought the products, and he really never thought anything of it. And I think trying to convince people that Vought is as corrupt as it really is and Homelander is really as bad or even worse than they can possibly imagine is not an easy task, because people are so emotionally, like, you almost have to see it to believe it. And that's the only reason Huey kind of came out of it. In terms of the expo, it was very eventful. Sister Sage was another standout. And Sister Sage is very interesting to me because I can't tell if she's plotting or if she's second guessing her decision to work with Homelander, because you get the vibe that she is aware that A-Train might be the snitch. But at the same time, being in these costumes, seeing the way that they exploit these soups, really hard to tell with Sister Sage. Like, is she onto something? Or is she sympathizing with A-Train? Is she wondering, damn, like, is this really a company? And is Homelander really an individual I want to prop up? Again, she's a very hard character to read. Now, in terms of A-Train, he looked like a nervous mess throughout. To be honest, like, you could just tell looking at him he was up to no good. And I love the contrast between A-Train and the Deep, because the Deep is another character I keep waiting for him to, like, defect or just do something, but instead he just keeps taking more and more BS, and he's kind of obsessed with power and validating his ego. And Sister Sage unlocked that in him. Now, in terms of the big man himself, Homelander, to be honest, I did not know what to expect from Homelander. I think going back to this lab he was brutally raised in was very eye-opening to him, and I don't think he understood fully how much control Vought really had over him. Like, I don't think he understood the depths of it prior to going home. And it seems like he's kind of turned a new leaf. He's no longer upset with his son, and he seems like he's kind of just going through this crisis at the moment. That was always going to go two ways. And that scene when he emancipated him and his son, like, I just thought that was so funny. It's really hard to know with Homelander what's going on in his head because he's opening up more to his son. I thought that conversation he had with Ryan about being, controlled and being a slave was really important, because Ryan has the capacity for empathy and forgiveness. And the more he understands his father, I think, the more on his side that he becomes. And I think Homelander, I don't know, like, he's another one where I'm like, is he just playing? Is this genuine? Like, it's really hard to tell with him. because he somehow found a way to finally unlock his son's bloodlust. Like, he has been trying to get this kid to kill and enjoy it, or inflict harm and enjoy it. But nothing he's doing has worked so far up until this episode. Now, Ryan is capable of violence, but he has to feel that it's justified. Whereas Homelander is capable of violence, and he doesn't really care if it's justified or not. Like, he'll just kill anyone. And that scene with the slap, I thought that was the first indication Ryan does have it in him to take after his father. Because it wasn't just one slap. He gets this girl to slap him over and over and again, and he was really enjoying it. I don't know if he was enjoying making things right with this girl, or watching this little weasel get slapped out of his mind. Like, it was really hard to tell, but you could tell Homelander was like, ooh, I think I'm onto something. And I thought it was very telling that Ryan was not in the room when they killed Ashley's boy toy. And I think although Ryan knows that his father isn't all the way like the best guy, he hasn't really seen it yet. He hasn't seen sort of like what we've seen when it comes to Homelander. Like, we know the depths of his depravity, but Ryan hasn't seen it. He has an idea maybe that his dad isn't that great, but he has yet to see it. So I thought that was very telling. And that scene was really important because Homelander has decided, and he's been thinking about this for some time, that he's tired of celebrities. He's tired of these expos. He's tired of being an action figure. He is done with Vought. Like, he wants State of the Union addresses. Like, he wants real power. He tells his team, listen, we are no longer celebrities, we are gods, and we will be treated as such. I think he has such a chip on his shoulder, and he wants to prove that he was meant for much more than what Vought has basically programmed him to do. The question is, he doesn't really have the skill to do it. And this is a side note, but I love the transitions from scene to scene. Like, they beat this guy to a pulp, and then the next scene is of like Starlight in her uniform. Like, the edit on this show is just absolutely savage. Now, in terms of the boys, they continue to explore the depths of rock bottom. Like, everything they're doing, I just feel like they're not doing that great of a job. Sadly for Starlight, that whole incident actually made her public enemy #1. And I thought it was very telling that being a pedophile is not as bad as having an abortion, which is sadly very true to life. Like, people like Firecracker, like, there's a scene she has with Sage. And again, Sage is very hard to read because I'm pretty sure she approached her to trigger her and get her going. But people like Firecracker, I mean, we could name a couple of real podcasters and real individuals that take after her, but they kind of buy into their own fiction. She really does believe she's a victim, and she's very entitled to what she has. I think that her superpower really is the fact that she could convince the public that her crime is forgivable. Now, in terms of Butcher, I don't know how y'all feel about him. I just think he's kind of losing his mind. He doesn't have that long to live, and he really doesn't know what to do. He feels like his life's purpose is to take out Homelander and to take out the Supes. Because when we're introduced to Butcher, he doesn't like Supes. He really, really despises them. And the only reason he's warmed up to Ryan is because of his wife. But deep down inside, he doesn't really care about this kid either. This individual he keeps consulting with, like, I'm pretty sure he is just in his head. Like, you guys let me know what you think, but there's just no way this guy could be real. Like, he pops up randomly. I'm like, who are you talking to and why? It seems like he's really like battling his demons. He's managed to kind of restrain himself. He hasn't really gone on his own fully, and every plan that he's had, for example, with Victoria and giving her Huey's files, like, he's kind of stepped back, but he's really like, you can tell he's really pushing himself to not do things on his own. And to make matters worse, we still don't know how he killed Ezekiel. Like, this is a mystery. I'm assuming he still has some compound V in him, and maybe that's what caused it. Like, it's not really clear. But even like, I really like Butcher's makeup. Like, this is really random, but he really does look like a man that is just paranoid and seeing things. Like, he's just gone. Like, this man is on his deathbed. I think part of the reason that Butcher is so conflicted is because he knows that taking out Homelander is very difficult, because that might mean taking out a lot more people than he anticipated. And he's not really sure how far he's willing to go, because if there's anything Homelander can do is drag the world down with him. He's made it clear, like, if you take me out, just know you got to take out everyone. This episode was the first step to making this a reality. And so the boys get the tip that there seems to be this magical drug, or this poison that is able to kill Soups, and they find out that Victoria has stolen it for herself. And Victoria is pretty clever. You know, she really knows how to stay ahead of things. And a lot of the reason that she's trying to develop this drug may be in part to protect her, but also as insurance. She needs a way to keep Homelander off her back too. So they have the same agenda, more or less, to try and figure out where she may have stashed this drug. They decide to release Stan the Man, and I'm so glad they brought him back because he adds much needed energy. And I thought it was very interesting that at the end Victoria freed him, because this is a man that really needs to be behind bars. And so this episode we get a lot more insight into Victoria and her relationship with Stan, and it seems like Victoria has not told her Stan everything. Like, there's a lot about her that he doesn't really know, specifically the fact that she had a baby with his scientist. And it seems like Stan had no idea that she had injected Zoe. I thought it was very interesting that Victoria felt that Stan was ashamed of her. And I'm wondering if she's warming up to the idea of maybe coming out on her own, and instead of holding this a secret. Because the only reason Victoria goes along with the boys, the only reason she continues to put herself in very compromising positions, is because she really doesn't want to be found out. Like, her worst fear is being found out. And it seems like a part of the reason why she doesn't want to be found out is because she was taught like subconsciously by Stan that she's a freak and that she should keep herself a secret. Now, in terms of this drug, it seems like it's very difficult to make, and the last dose they had to use to survive. And I have to say, this whole scene with the demonic sheep and chicken was absolutely spectacular. I like how they made them sound demonic as well. Like, it was just so entertaining. And I love how every episode they come up with more, like, the absurdity just increases to a new level. Towards the end of the episode, it seemed like for a second Victoria's hubby didn't make it out, and I knew that something was wrong when I saw that leg. Like, it looked perfectly sawed off. Now, Butcher's decision to kidnap this man and cut off his legs, I think, is the first indication that he may be leaning towards the dark side. Because as much as he wants to work with the boys and come up with a plan that harms the least amount of people, he wants to be the person. Like, the thing with Butcher is that he wants to have the final say, which is why he keeps doing all these little projects on his own, like tying up this man and cutting off his leg. And I think the moment I realized that his little friend wasn't real is tell that Samir was looking at him like, who are you talking to? And I think the division within the boys has increased to the point where you just get the feeling that it's every man for himself, especially when the episode ends. This whole Frenchie and Colin storyline, like, you guys let me know what you think. I felt like it was a bit forced. The fact that Frenchie turned himself in is very concerning because he has a lot of secrets. So I'm not really sure where they're going with this Frenchie storyline. Like, do they plan on killing him off? One of my favorite moments in this series was when he was discussing forgiveness with Starlight and the difference between being able to forgive someone and being forgiven. And it seems like the boys are at the point where a lot of the things they're doing may be unforgivable. I forgot to mention, Starlight, she seems to be impotent. Like, she's not able to use her powers, and she's going through this very angry stage where she just wants to punch everyone in the face. I think a lot of this frustration has to do with the fact that she can't really get rid of Starlight, and at the same time, she doesn't really know who she is. They've all kind of built their personalities around taking out Homelander, and so without Homelander and without the boys, they just don't really know what to do. Finally, I didn't touch on this that much, but I thought the storyline with Huey was the most emotional that we've had this entire series, and I think what I appreciated is we finally get more depth into the boys. We're getting more on a personal level, and I thought this whole sequence with Huey and putting his father down was absolutely stunning. And I think for Huey, like, letting his father go was very difficult, and we find out he's an individual that doesn't really let people go all that much, and maybe this is a turning point for his character as well. He's going to have to start getting used to the fact that, you know, you're gonna have to start letting people go if you're gonna pursue taking out Vought a lot more seriously. So I just thought that sequence was spectacular. I like what Compound V did to his dad. Like, that was one heck of a superpower, like cutting through people. Like, that one scene when he just like literally like grinded that guy was just absolutely spectacular. So overall, I thought this was definitely my favorite episode. You guys let me know what you think, and until next time.